Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast, a weekly discussion about things about God, about things about the message that we just heard on Sunday, about things that are happening in the world, and things that are wonderful about knowing Jesus. All of that plus more. And today is going to be plus more because it's just the two of us. Here's Matt with me. I'm Diane Karchner, and we're ready to roll. Matt, say hi.
Hey there.
Hey.
Good to be with you. It is 8:24 at night, and so we might be a little bit more giddy and punchy than normal. We just got some hot details in child sponsorship, so we knew we had to wait until we could make that announcement.
Yeah, we've been so excited about catching you up on all the things that Matt went through on Sunday. And after we got through that service, we were thinking maybe they need to know why we're doing some of this stuff. Maybe they need to know a little more details. And gosh, let's do it on the podcast. And when do we have time? And we both went 8:30 on Tuesday night. No, Wednesday night. That's even worse. So pardon our excitement. We drank a lot of water. I drank coffee with caffeine in it just a few minutes ago. So we could be here a while.
You're gonna be fired up. I like it.
I'm going for it. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about things. One of the things that I love about Experience Church and a Christian church, and one of the reasons that I got involved, honestly, was because we have this view that church is not just Sunday morning. It's all week long. We can take the love of Jesus out into anywhere we go and everywhere we go. And we can be involved in learning more about God and about Jesus every single day of the week. So with that in mind, we decided that for this next upcoming series that Matt's going to talk about in just a second, we're going to give you the opportunity to get involved and give you something to get involved with every day of the week. So Matt, our next series is called What Jesus Didn't Say. And you've picked out 5 great things that we all, if we're new to this, or even those of us who've been around it a long time, kind of think, yeah, I think he did say that. Didn't he mean it that way? And maybe we're reading things wrong. So you picked 5 great ideas just to cover and dig into. But interestingly enough, you picked the book of John. Of all the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, of all those 4 Gospels you could have picked to really tie this message into, you picked John. How come? Just give us a little bit of background on that to begin with.
Sure. Yeah, I was really hoping that we could do a series that would really be something that we could all experience together. And so just pouring over each of the gospel messages, the gospel being good news of Jesus and about his life, what's something that we could encourage our community to do, those that have been a part of our community and those that may have joined us from an Easter Sunday, to lean in and ask the questions that maybe they haven't asked since they were a kid about who Jesus is, what a relationship with him looks like. And looking at each of the Gospels, any one of them would have worked, but really felt drawn to John in particular, because I was really excited to teach John's account in John 20 on Easter about the resurrection. And just reading, I'm going to not botch it. I could do a decent job summarizing it, but I want to read John 20, 30 to 31. That's when John said his purpose of the gospel. And so John 20, verse 31, he says, "These are written so that you may continue to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing in him, you will have life by the power of his name." And really, that's just as exciting to think, why did John write this at such a late part of his life? What did he want to do? And he wanted to put the accounts that he witnessed as a witness, as a follower of Jesus, and wanted to make a case for us to believe and lean into Jesus. And just like thinking through all the stories that really impact us and how applicable they are to us 2,000 years later, I was like, this really has some great stuff. Ironically, it was really fun that those of you that went to the IF gathering, that's what it was, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You were really jazzed about, it inspired week 1 of this series, when you're just talking about the character traits of who God is, and that if we really believe that Jesus is all powerful, all knowing, that he's holy, that he's set apart, that he's perfect, like before anything else in this world was made or polluted or diluted, if Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, all existed before anything was created, well, wow, he's perfect. And if we trust him and have faith in him, give our lives to him, everything else just kind of can fall into place. And as John said, we can believe and experience the power of him in our lives. So that was just really fun. So then we just threw on, looked at, okay, you were actually the one who really pushed for us to read a gospel together.
Yep.
That was your really encouragement. Like, I really want us to read one together as a church. And then looking at John being 21 chapters and how we can break that up. And that turned into asking Lee and Pat if they would be interested in leading a master class. I mean, 2 doctors leading us through this book is amazing. And we're like, wow, it just felt like God brought all the pieces together, teaching every weekend on one of 5 chapters, them covering 5 chapters every Tuesday night, and then an opportunity for us to read and the footnotes and get a Bible like this, just, a thin, how many pages is this?
Enough.
It's like 60 pages. So we could sit down and read this in an afternoon easily. But allowing that to really soak into our lives and challenges is pretty cool. I mean, it was into adulthood before I actually read a Bible book all the way through. So I would assume that some of our folks that attend have never read through one full story. They kind of listened to pieces that were important, but have they ever read an entire book together? I'm interested to see how people respond.
Yeah, this is great. And to be honest with you, John wasn't my first choice of the 4 gospels. I find some of the other gospels to be more about what Jesus did. He went here and then he went here and then he did this and he healed this person and he fed these people and it was always this activity. But in John, it's really different. It's about who Jesus is, more so. I've been fascinated in the book of John by just the number of things that are just in John. Because sometimes when you read the other gospels, they kind of have their own take on the 5,000 were fed, or he healed this person, all wonderful stories, but they just have their own little takes on each one. But John, a lot of it is so unique and you won't read it in any of the other gospels. So that's been really fun discovering that, oh my gosh, this is the only place that I will hear and read about this particular miracle or this particular sermon he gave or this particular incredible kindness he showed. So that's been really fun discovering. And I've been a Christian for a long time. And I've read through John, and John just seemed really overwhelming until you really get into it and you're like, oh, this is so fun.
It's still overwhelming.
Yeah.
I believe it's 90% is original to John's gospel.
Yeah. I think that's what made it fun for me, because anybody, I mean, it doesn't matter if you've been a Christian or you're just trying to figure out what this Christianity is all about, or you've been a Christian as long as I have, you're going to discover something in this book that every time I'm just fascinated by that. And mad at myself, perhaps, for not discovering it 30 years ago, right? So we've given you lots of ways to discover this incredible book. First, of course, are Matt's messages each Sunday. The one he delivered on Easter was on John 20 and about the wonderful way that John talks about the resurrection. Then we have the podcast, obviously, this wonderful podcast with these awesome hosts. And I don't usually call us awesome. So caffeine's making me say some really
it's after 8 o'clock, our link changes. Yeah,
exactly. I think our superlatives change into more truth telling, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah. There's the podcast on the Facebook community page. If you're not a member of our Facebook online community page, jump on, because we're going to be just packing that full of stuff. We have our memorization verses that'll be on there. Oh, yes, we're going to ask you to memorize 1 verse a week. Woo! At the end of 5 weeks, you're going to have memorized 5. And if you've never done it before, oh man, there's a verse in Hebrews that says the word of God is alive and active. So when you put it in, it just works its way into your body and into your heart. It sounds creepy, but it's not, so memorization is really going to change the way that you see the Bible and the way you see your faith, honestly. So the Facebook community page will remind you to memorize, and we'll have all that kind of stuff. Matt's going to be putting some stuff on there. I'm going to be putting some stuff on there all the way through our 5 weeks. So you can touch and see and hear and learn through John any way you want to of those 5 ways. Plus, Matt mentioned it, the master class with Doctors Lee and Pat Magnus. They're going to be taking us through John on Tuesday nights in detail. And you're allowed to ask questions and you're allowed to dig in, and it'll be really fun, especially if you're just exploring this for the first time. Yeah. So anything else in the masterclass?
Yeah, I would say one other thing is it can feel overwhelming to take on reading the Bible for the first time. And, you may have heard me say the most dangerous thing in the world is a Bible in someone's hand without a commentary. If they have no familiarity, they just open that book up and start reading. Yes, it's God's inspired word. Yes, it's designed to change how we live. But it can be confusing if you don't understand the genre, who the initial audience was, all these little things. And so if you did not attend Easter or sign up for an egg, this is just how the inside of this book looks, which is the Life Application Bible, just in the book of John. This part is divinely inspired by God. This part is by really smart scholars who wanted to explain what's happening up here.
Yeah.
And so it's very helpful to be in. And with Doctors Lee and Pat, they are so approachable and so practical. There's no question that's going to be off limits, and they were college professors. So they get a lot of people in the 18 to all the way up to whatever age that are, in that process of deconstructing your faith, maybe rethinking things. And so they're prepared to take on any question without being shocked or put off by it. It's really going to be a great learning environment.
Yeah. And this little Bible, the Gospel of John that we have available, it's called a Life Application Study Bible. And the reason that I love it is because it takes what seems like a complicated verse, like you have no idea what they're talking about, and why would you keep talking about shepherds, or why would you keep talking about, whatever, because they wrote to the people of those times. And these kind of commentaries will help you say they talked about this because in those times, and all of a sudden it comes to life for you. So the Life Application Bible, the whole Bible is really great to have, but just doing John in this, it helps it be less overwhelming, honestly. So you'll like it. So if you don't have one of those, reach out to one of us and we'll make sure we mail you one right away. So again, 24/7 church, jump in as soon as you get it.
That's right.
Great. Anything else on John and the new series, what Jesus didn't say?
I think that pretty well covers it. I would just say that this is one that I believe you should invite some folks into the conversation with, talk about it. It's be very practical. Week 1, if Jesus isn't human. Week 2 we'll be talking about that is the woman at the well, and that God has a special way for us to live our lives. And a lot of times we choose to do our own way, and that leads to a lot of pain and heartache. And Jesus actually is full of both grace and truth. He has grace for us when we mess up, but he has truth, which is a better way to live our lives. And the next week will be the raising of Lazarus, which is John chapter 11. And that's just a great discussion on, God, I want you to do things my way. And Mary and Martha, that was Lazarus, was their brother. They loved him and they called for Jesus, and Jesus didn't come yet. And when Jesus showed up to John chapter 11, he basically signed his death wish, because that was when that miracle of resurrecting Lazarus was what turned and was the pivot point in that gospel, when now the authorities decided they wanted to get rid of him. And so all of his teaching turns inward towards his disciples from that point on. And so just really powerful story, but we all find ourselves asking practically, like, God, I want this so bad, this marriage, this child, this family member to be healed, all of these things. And we can find ourselves, if you would only, then this. I think that'll be really powerful. The next one will be John 16, talking about in this world we'll have trouble. Take heart, I've overcome the world. Okay, Jesus, if you overcome the world, why do we still have trouble? And then the final week, we're going to be talking about why is life not fair? And that's a really cool story of Peter asking, why is John getting off scot-free and not having to die a martyr's death like I am? And Jesus says, what's it to you? So,
yeah,
not fair. You need fairness, right?
They're eye-opening, those stories, honestly.
Yeah.
I like the one about Lazarus, because the two sisters who were very good friends of Jesus's. I mean, Lazarus was very close with Jesus, and they ran right up to him and said, if only you had been here. I could see these two little Jewish women going, if only you had been here, then my brother wouldn't have died. And they're in Jesus's face. And I just always appreciated the honest and authentic relationship they had with him. Even though they worshiped him, even though they knew he was the Messiah, he was still so approachable to them. And I just really appreciate that story. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Yep.
He brought somebody back from the dead too. So that had something to do with it being my favorite, but
yeah. Yep.
Okay. So tune in. We've got 5 weeks of good stuff coming at you.
Mhm.
You don't want to miss one. Okay, so we have one more thing to talk to you about, which is very near and dear to our hearts, and that's Compassion International sponsoring children in the country of Colombia, in one village in the country of Colombia. So we're going to sponsor all of them, and all of them are going to be friends, and they're going to grow up together, and we're going to have something to do with a whole community growing up together. And that's really just so thrills me. So let's start just with how we got involved with Compassion International. And Matt, Stadia is our church planting organization that we work with as a church plant. So tell us how this all happened and how we got connected.
Yeah, that's great. So the president of Stadia linked arms with the president of Compassion, and they have a really cool friendship that has developed. And when they started sharing each other's missions, they realized how complementary they were and how much they could help one another out. So Stadia's mission statement is until every child has a church. So their mindset is we're going to keep planting churches until every child has a local church that they can participate in, that cares for them, that's going to help them grow in their relationship with Jesus. Compassion, obviously, is they are, what do they call it? Blessing children from poverty. Oh, releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name. And so a beautiful relationship. Compassion always partners with local churches. And so what Compassion was finding, there were parts of the world where they had a serious issue with child poverty, but there was no local church to partner with because they really want to see these children understanding who Jesus is and caring for them practically and holistically, not just giving them food, but really helping them grow in their education, all those things. And so Stadia is like, well, we can plant the churches that could partner with you to house the children. So what a cool thing to see this kind of partnership happen. And so Stadia will actually do fundraising to launch a church in the country like Colombia. So the church that we're going to be partnering with was a church plant, I believe, through Stadia. And just so exciting to see how a church plant here in Pennsylvania can help care for the kids in that particular area. Yeah. One of the things that we've mentioned before on the podcast, but that there are so much more ways to help and serve people than just giving money. And whenever we see ourselves as the blesser, we miss the opportunity of allowing them to bless us through prayer, through friendship, through writing letters to us, letting us know how life is when we share a prayer request with them, that they're actually praying for that. Yeah, that's cool. And so it's not just a, hey, we're giving this hand out. We're giving a hand up that's going to revitalize this community, but in turn, they're growing in their faith and can pray and journey with us and enhance our lives.
So true. There's one of the books in our resources that we provide on the podcast called When Helping Hurts. Yeah. And it was one of the very first books that I ever read when I went to Kenya 10 years ago to work in the slums in Nairobi. And that's what it taught. It was so eye-opening because I thought I was going to go over there to help all these poor things, these poor little creatures, and just love up on them. And that was all I was getting. But I got so much more out of it. I was telling Matt this story before we started. When we went over there, the slums in Nairobi are about 1 million people in 3 square miles. On the edge of Nairobi, and this bustling city of Eastern Africa, which looks like any other city. I mean, it's bustling, it's buses and cars and traffic, but then along the edge is this slum. And after we had toured it and we met some of the kids and we met the teachers who were teaching at the school that we were supporting, we went up on the top of the roof of this 3-story building, which housed the school, all made out of cinder block. We're not talking about anything fancy here. You can't even imagine the smells and the sounds of a slum. So we're up on top of it, and all you could see, as far as you could see, all around you, no matter which way you looked, was the tin roofs, the corrugated roofs of the slum housing, because they lived in these little, probably as big as a shed you might have out back of your house. Families lived in that kind of squalor. And it was so overwhelming. None of us even talked. There was 4 of us standing up there with the pastor of the church, and none of us could even talk. It was so overwhelming. And so I said to the pastor when I got my composure back, so how do you do this? How do you work in this kind of environment? Doesn't it overwhelm you? And he said, no, Diane, it doesn't, because you just You just look at one child at a time. And he said, if you can do that, then you can change their futures. This whole slum can be changed one child at a time. That so stuck with me. I read that book again on the way back home because that's exactly what the book taught. It was just about finding some way you can help and then let those people help you. My heart has never been the same, never been the same. I see the grocery store differently. I see my home differently. It just changed me.
Yeah.
So you're in for a really great treat choosing to sponsor a child.
Yeah. I love that, just that idea. They've just done so much research, and if people watch the video that we posted, it just has so many facts about how child sponsorship is so much more because of the prayers and the encouragement of children, that they lean into school and they lean into a trade that they can give back to their community. So they just, it's just, I mean, we already know this intuitively, that more than likely the lasting solution is going to come from within that community, where God grabs a hold of a kid, inspires him, raises him up, and they will lead out of that space.
Yep.
And could be a global world changer. That's exciting.
Exactly. It's very exciting. Yeah, I think one of the statistics that you shared on Sunday was that over 700 million people live in abject poverty, less than $2 a day. But the more staggering statistic to me, which really I just has been on my mind ever since, was 15,000 children. 15,000. That's 5 million children a year die due to something related to poverty, whether it be disease or hunger, starvation, or just the whole idea of poverty and what it does to a person's life. 5 million. So if we can help one, just one, that's exciting. That's really exciting news. So we have one village, one little church based in Exton, Pennsylvania. We're looking to sponsor 41 kids. How many we got so far? What's our countdown looking like?
Yeah, it's 40 kids at that particular school, and then 5 there locally. So that gives us a total of 45.
Okay.
And right now we are at 34. We have changed the registration process. So it was going to be a text in and you get a response from a child. But we've reached out to them and they've allowed us our own little site there. So we have a forward from our website, experiencecc.org/sponsor, will take you to right now, the current number is 34 children waiting to be sponsored. The longest one is Lewis. He's been on the waiting list for 574 days.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And then you have all the way to probably fairly recently, they actually don't have how long they've been waiting. So maybe just 100 or 200 days.
Yeah.
So it's a great mix of children, and I cannot wait till we see that number disappear. That's cool.
Yeah, what's really exciting, Compassion International, the whole website, I've been on it and digging into it. It is it's just so helpful. You could write a letter, you can just fill in the blanks kind of letter. You can, the little guy, one of the little guys that I sponsored was a little boy whose birthday is next week. And I got to send him a gift and a happy birthday card, and they have it all set up for you. They have all kinds of ideas on their blog about what you can send to them for Christmas and how you can interact with them, how often you should write them or can write them, which is all the time if you want to. I might go overboard a little bit if I have too much caffeine, but anyway, it's just get on that site and dig in after you sponsor your child, and they make it really, really easy.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Anything else on compassion? It's so exciting to think about this whole village.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things, it can feel scary to make a commitment of $38 a month for years. But one of the things that everyone knows, it's your intention. That's what matters. If you found yourself unavailable to continue sponsorship with a child, that's certainly okay. But it is certainly most helpful to care for that child all the way through. But don't let that loud sponsorship level scare you, because it's such a good thing. For us, I remember just always seeing the compassion booths at student ministry conferences, and I'd come home and like, oh man, I don't know how we're going to do that, and if we should do it. And then I just felt God impressed on us, just do one for one, and I'll cover you. That wasn't an audible voice. That was just an impression. But when we first got Michael, I remember looking at his picture and he looked just like Ian, these big chubby cheeks and this cute guy. And we just have a folder of letters that has been both ways. It's also been helpful whenever the kids' birthdays come up. when we send them something, it's helpful for them to process, like, what is it they have and what is it that we're able to send, and how different their experiences and ours, not better, not worse, it's just different. And so it really helps put things in perspective for our children to walk alongside a kid that's growing up very differently.
Yeah. The thing that amazed me about these children that we sponsored in Kenya was that the simplistic needs, the things that we take for granted, a box of different colored paper clips was prized possession. Evidently, I just threw it in there with some colored pencils and some paper, thinking that, I hope they like this. Oh my gosh, it was like, the greatest thing since sliced bread for them. It's just such simplistic things. The other thing that I noticed over there when we were there was just these schools that Compassion sets up for these children. They teach them the love of God in such a way. There was the kids were singing to us because these kids love to sing. It's their entertainment, actually, because they don't have TVs and video games, and they don't have anything. They just sing to each other and dance and play soccer. And they sang a song that is right out of the book of Proverbs, and it said, if my mom and dad leave me, basically, if my mom and dad leave me, it doesn't matter. Jesus is still with me. And they sang that to us at the top of their lungs, and they were dancing around the desks. And afterwards, I said to the teacher, oh my gosh, why would you even teach that? Because their moms and dads leave, but Jesus never does. Because in the slum, it's just part of life there, that they're raised by their grandparents or orphans on the street, that they find them a home to live in. And the churches know what those kids need, and the schools know how to teach them the love of Jesus in mixing in with writing and math. And it's such a loving thing to do, to make sure these kids get educated and fed. And
yeah, that's amazing.
Okay, so we'll close tonight because my caffeine's wearing off. I'm starting to talk slower. So before Matt prays and takes us to a close, just wanted to remind you that the resources are listed below the podcast. So take advantage of those. There's a couple of books. There's an overview of John in Right Now Media. You can join Right Now Media for free. You'll see that link there too. So that's a really great overview of John if you wanted to start there before you dig into reading it. And there's also the Bible reading plan that we're all going to be following. So you can download that if you didn't get it already. And I think that's it. So don't forget to look there for the support you're going to need for this month, 5 weeks, because it's going to be fun doing this together. We're so glad you're going to be doing it with us.
And we had one other sneak thing, if you remember.
Oh, yes. I almost forgot. We have a surprise. We have not announced this anywhere else. Because you listen to the podcast, you get to know about it before anybody else does.
I told my small group, I'm going to be honest.
Oh, geez, Matt. All right.
But,
we'll pretend he didn't tell. So, go ahead.
June 26th. That is Saturday, June 26th to Sunday, July the 2nd. That's a Friday. We have a mission trip planned for Praying. It's Praying Pelicans. And we will be going to West Virginia, to the Appalachian Mountains, to help restore some homes and some hope for individuals in a mission trip. It's a little lofty to want to do this kind of trip as COVID hits, but we know the need is great. And so our heart is to certainly love others in practical ways. And again, this is not we just go and we rescue. A mission trip is an unbelievable experience to love others practically and be loved by that team. And so we're going to have more information coming out soon, and that'll be released sometime next week. So we're just pumped about that. It is a cool thing to be able to be together and really pray for how God can use us to do good things, even when times are hard. You go on a vacation cruise, and you're kind of over and you're back home. You're like, well, that was fun. And then before you know it, you're wondering, what impact did that have other than a lot of fun? And maybe it did, and that's good. I still think people should take vacations. I'm not guilting people into doing mission trips. But when you come home from a mission trip, you're coming back with lots of memories of how a family is changed because of your giving and your sacrifice. So I'm excited to see who signs up, what God does, and how that could inspire others for future trips. Our first one. I'm pumped.
Woohoo! And now you know, for a whole week you have a secret.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Oh yeah.
All right.
And
Well,
your
I'll pray
group.
us out of here. This was awesome.
All right.
Thank
Yeah.
you. God, we love you. And God, it is only your gift of love that fills us up, that allows us to extend it to other people. God, we're so thankful for a community that just wants to love one another well, imperfectly as we do it. We're thankful for your grace that we can extend towards one another. We really want to enhance community and help communities thrive because of our partnership and just contribution into them. And God, we want to engage in purpose. What are you calling us to do? Whether it's in our family, at our workplace, or as a church, we just want to live for you. So thanks for the opportunity to get together with Diane tonight. Thank you for those that are listening in. I pray that they'll be inspired to take some big moves for you, whether it's investing in your word through the study of John, if it's sponsoring a child, and God, or if it's going on a mission trip. We want to do all these things, not for you, but we want to do them with you. So thanks for the opportunity to do that, God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks everybody for joining in. We'll see you next week.